Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's story is not about war, not about missiles, not about geopolitics. Yet it is more terrifying than all of them combined. Because this time, the crisis we are talking about is not happening on a battlefield, but inside the homes, streets, and empty rivers of one of the oldest civilizations on Earth. Tehran, the huge capital of Iran, a city of more than 8 million souls and the heart of an entire region, is running out of water. Not in theory, not in the distant future, right now. Every passing day, taps are drying, reservoirs are shrinking, and the land beneath the capital is collapsing inch by inch. What looks like a normal city from above is slowly falling into the ground literally, because the water that once filled its underground veins is gone. And the most shocking part, this nightmare was not created by nature. It was created by humans, governments, policies, mismanagement, corruption, and decades of decisions that pushed Tehran to the very edge of extinction. People often imagine water crises as something that happens in deserts or faraway poor villages. But this is Tehran's skyscrapers, giant highways, a massive population, advanced infrastructure, and still, the entire system is breaking down. Iran once had mighty rivers, flowing lakes, ancient canal water channels, and snow-capped mountains feeding reservoirs for centuries. But today, many rivers are gone, lakes have turned into salt plains, the soil has cracked, underground aquifers are almost empty, and in many places the land has sunk so much that buildings now sit lower than their foundations were designed for. What was once fertile land has turned into dust. What once supported millions now supports barely anyone. Scientists say Tehran is sinking up to 25 centimeters per year. That's one of the fastest subsidence rates on the planet. And every centimeter is a warning that cannot be ignored anymore. When people in Tehran open their taps and see only a weak drip or nothing at all, they are not just experiencing temporary supply cuts. They are watching the collapse of an entire water ecosystem. These are the consequences of decades of overpumping water from beneath the earth, building unnecessary dams, diverting rivers for political reasons, and ignoring climate science until it was too late. Experts say that nearly 80% of Iran's groundwater reserves are gone forever. Not temporarily forever. Once an aquifer collapses, it does not refill. The land above it compresses, the underground structures break, and the empty spaces that stored water for thousands of years vanish permanently. Imagine a giant sponge that has been squeezed so hard for so long that it can never expand again. That is Tehran's water table today. But how did a country with ancient water engineering brilliance fall into such a dangerous situation? The answer is a mix of politics, drought, mismanagement, and decades of looking for short-term solutions instead of long-term stability. Iran's government invested heavily in water-intensive agriculture, growing crops like wheat, rice, and pistachios in regions that cannot support them. Farmers were encouraged, sometimes even forced, to pump more groundwater, dig deeper wells, and expand agricultural land. Over 400 illegal wells exist today. Entire rivers that once fed villages and towns now end in dry sand beds because so much water is extracted before it can reach its natural destination. And as the rainfall dropped and temperatures increased due to climate change, the government refused to adapt. Instead of reducing water use, they pushed for more. Instead of protecting groundwater, they emptied it. Instead of confronting the crisis, they denied it. Tehran became the biggest victim of this national water overuse. The city's water comes from three main dams, Lar, Latian, and Karaj. But these dams are now at historically low levels. Snowfall in the Alborz Mountains has decreased dramatically. Rainfall is unpredictable. Summers are getting hotter and winters are shrinking. Water that once lasted through the year now barely lasts through a season. And with each passing year, the demand increases. More people, more buildings, more industry, more pressure on a system that can no longer handle the load. But Iran's water crisis is more than just dry rivers and empty dams. It has become a social crisis. Neighborhood fights break out when water trucks arrive. People queue with buckets and containers just to get a few liters. Hospitals face shortages, schools sometimes shut early. Water pressure can disappear for hours or even days. And when the government announces restrictions, people panic because they know the truth. There is not enough water to go around. Even Tehran's wealthy areas, once immune to shortages, are now experiencing sudden cuts. Infrastructure is aging. Pipes leak millions of liters every day. It's a disaster happening simultaneously at the human level, the economic level, and the environmental level. Another terrifying consequence is the sinking of the land. When aquifers collapse, the ground above sinks, highways crack, buildings tilt, roads develop giant fractures. Some areas around Tehran have sunk more than 4 meters in the past decade. Scientists warn that parts of the city could become unsafe for construction, transportation, or even habitation. Imagine a massive city slowly caving in. This is not science fiction. It is happening right now beneath Iran's capital. People ask, why not desalinate seawater from the Persian Gulf? Why not import water? Why not build more dams? But the truth is, Iran's crisis is too big for simple fixes. Desalination is expensive and requires massive energy Iran can't afford during sanctions. Importing water from neighboring countries is politically and logistically impossible, and building more dams would only worsen groundwater depletion. The real solution lies in reducing water use, upgrading technology, modernizing agriculture, and restoring ecosystems. But these changes take time Tehran may no longer have. The Iranian government finally admitted the crisis is severe, but still refuses to implement the largest reforms needed. Politics, fear of public backlash, and economic pressure all delay real action. But with millions at risk, delay is more dangerous than confronting reality. Some experts warn that if nothing changes, Tehran may face a zero-day, a moment when major parts of the capital simply run out of water entirely. No taps, no daily supply, no reserves. That scenario could trigger mass migrations, instability, and a national emergency. For ordinary families, the crisis feels like living with a countdown clock. Every summer is worse than the last. Every year, rainfall drops lower. People see rivers disappear before their eyes. Rivers that once shaped their childhood memories now exist only in old photographs. Lakes like Urmia turned into ghostly salt plains. Forests shrank. Wildlife vanished. And as nature faded, the cities began to collapse too. What once was a thriving land is now battling a slow, painful, but preventable destruction. The water crisis is not a punishment from nature. It is the result of years of choices made by leaders who ignored warnings, planners who prioritized politics over sustainability, and systems that believed water would always flow no matter how much was consumed. But now, Iran is learning the hardest lesson a nation can learn. Water is not infinite. It is fragile, precious, and unforgiving when misused. Tehran's people are resilient. They have survived revolutions, wars, sanctions, and economic collapse. But even the strongest societies cannot survive without water. Water is life. Without it, cities fall, economies shatter, and nations weaken. And that is the real danger. Iran's water crisis is not just about the present. It threatens the future stability of an entire country. This is why the world must pay attention, because Tehran's crisis is a warning for every nation. When governments ignore science, when resources are overused, when short-term politics replace long-term planning, even the most powerful cities can collapse. The future belongs to nations that manage their water wisely, and right now, Tehran stands on the wrong side of that future. Yet, hope still exists. Solutions are possible if action is taken now. Smarter irrigation, recycling wastewater, protecting rivers, restoring wetlands, reducing agricultural overuse, and educating the public can still slow the crisis. But reforms must be bold, immediate, and uncompromising. Iran cannot afford small steps anymore. This is a moment for massive transformation. Tehran is standing at a crossroads. One path leads to survival, adaptation, and recovery. The other leads to a humanitarian disaster that will echo for generations. The question now is whether the government will choose the right path, or continue down the road that has already taken so much from its people. Because if there is one truth that cannot be ignored, it is this: water crises do not wait, they grow. They spread, and once they reach the breaking point, there is no turning back. Iran is dangerously close to that line. Whether it pulls back or crosses it will determine its destiny. That's the story of Tehran's water nightmare, not created by nature, but created by humans. And only humans can stop it before it's too late.